the motion. Second, I call the member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I second this motion. The minister has implied that babies and children are in hospital or may end up in hospital as part of some deliberate, coordinated attempt to blackmail this government. Now, that is a disgusting statement, and it is worthy of censure, and standing orders must be suspended because there are dozens of other babies and children currently in Australia right now whose situation is uncertain. Their situation is uncertain, and their parents and those around them will be looking to what the minister says to decide, to know whether or not they have a chance of raising their kids in a healthy environment. Now, let's recap as to how we got here. The minister was asked a simple question about what would happen with baby Asha and whether or not she would be entitled to stay in Australia or would be sent back to Nauru. And it was also asked what was going to happen to the other children. And what did the minister say? The minister said this. He said he would not preside over a situation where we have people self-harming to come to hospitals in this country because they believe that is the route out into the Australian community for Australian citizenship. Now, you can only draw two inferences from that. One is that babies and children themselves are self-harming because that is how they believe to get to Australia. It wasn't as a result of an accident. It wasn't as a result of spilled boiling water. Somehow they're making that decision themselves. Or secondly, the minister is implying that somehow the families of those babies and children are harming them or are encouraging them to self-harm in order to come to Australia. Now, that is a disgusting and vile statement. And as we always see with this government and the Liberal National Party, when the polls go down, the vileness goes up. And it is happening yet again. As we head towards another election, it is becoming another race to the bottom on refugees, another race to the bottom to see who can take the most vulnerable in our community, those who need the most help, those who are coming here seeking our help, babies and children who have committed no other crime other than being born here or going to school here, and how we can treat them. And what does the minister say? Well, there's self-harm going on, and it may be that they're doing it themselves, or it may be that their parents are encouraging them to do it. This so-called party of family values, stands up in this parliament and says it's conceivable that some parents might encourage their children to harm themselves just to get into a hospital. I have not met one parent anywhere ever, of any race, of any nationality, who would ever consider putting their child in harm's way, whatever the potential gain. And now we have the immigration minister suggesting there might be some deliberate plot hatched to get children into Australian hospitals. What he is overlooking is the simple point that the doctors and the health staff in Brisbane made loud and clear. And it's the same point that is being made by doctors and health staff in my electorate of Melbourne. And it is the same point that is being made by state premiers. And it is the same point that is being made by thousands and thousands around the country. Detention harms children. Detention harms children. That is why they said they weren't going to release them, not as part of some nefarious plot, but because detention harms children, and this minister knows it. Now, say what you like, Deputy Speaker, about the various merits of asylum seeker policy. And I think everyone understands that this is a complex issue. And if you don't think it's a complex issue, you haven't been paying attention. But the suggestion from this government boils down to this. Whatever we might be able to do in terms of a regional solution, whatever other options there might be, the government is saying that somehow child abuse is a necessary component of an effective border protection and immigration policy. What rot! We do not agree with that. The Greens do not accept that our only choice is between deaths at sea and child abuse. And I notice that the Minister for Immigration is in the chamber, and I hope that he is going to stand up, because if he stands up and if he is really concerned about deaths at sea, then take this opportunity to assure us that on your watch, from the vote turned backs, there have been no deaths at sea. Tell us that from every boat you've turned back, it hasn't gone on to cause deaths at sea. Take this opportunity to tell us that there haven't been deaths at sea somewhere else, as people choose not to come to Australia but instead seek asylum elsewhere. But this is a complicated issue. Of course it is a complicated issue. But the suggestion The suggestion the only way we can solve it is by child abuse, and the implication that parents might be encouraging their children to self-harm is vile, and the minister should be
The honourable
censored.
member's time is expired.